Come see how easy it is to paint Dragonskin. What's up, hobby maniacs? Baer with you again today on a fantastic hobby hump day. Today we're going to show you how to paint some really fresh green blue dragon skin, of course, on Mr. Dragon Cat himself, Venice Hammerhands. Now, we did a tutorial already on this bad boy. This is going to rewind the clock a little bit, show you how to do that really fresh green skin up on here, well, green blue skin, and then you can head on and do any gold trim or anything like that that you may want to do for your miniatures. Now, we painted this live on Twitch for the most part with a couple of off-camera things such as the skin itself. So always make sure you tune in on the Twitch every Monday night, 7 or 8 Eastern time. It depends on whether we're on summer hours or not, to check out what we're painting live over there and interact and ask questions that you might not be able to get to ask here on YouTube. So that's it. We're gonna jump right into it. No more spiel. You know what you're looking for, and we're gonna show you how easy it is to paint that fresh dragon skin. So here it is. We've got our golden dragon cat for Age of Sigmar. No big deal here. He was primed up using that Retributor armor spray, but we ain't gonna worry about that. None of that matters right now. All that matters is that we're gonna paint this bad boy up, use some of these greens to get his skin popping. So we're gonna start with Incubi Darkness. Then we're gonna go work up to Cabalite Green. And finally, a more pastel-y version. You can't push a dry through the airbrush, right? So we're just gonna add some color to this to get it up to around this level right here, which you can already kind of see in the background. So first up, we're gonna rock out our Incubi Darkness. Now, we're gonna try to use some of this base. This is really thick, so we want to make sure that we've got it mixed up pretty good. We've got a ball bearing in here, 1/4 inch ball bearing. You probably can't see it, but I assure you it is in there. So now we're going to grab our airbrush. I'm going to put a little bit of flow improver in here, which is super critical to this process because we're basically going 1-for-1 flow improver and a little bit of water for paint, just because this base stuff is so freaking thick. So there it is. Dump our Incubi Darkness into here, or try to. Dump or not to dump, that is the question. So you can tell that was a big glob, which was pretty brutal. So we're gonna make sure that, this is the problem when you're mixing airbrush paint, right? Is that you have these issues where it'll start clumping if you don't mix it up really well. Because now we're just going, like I said, 1-for-1. So we're gonna grab our buster brush right here and just get in here and mix it. Now, if we're doing a big patch, like we did, if we were doing a whole army, I would mix this up separately. But because this is all we're rocking out right now, I am gonna mix it in a pot. Now you gotta be careful. This is very critical. Up in here, if any of this dries around the top of the reservoir, it'll get down into your needle area, and that will become a huge issue. But again, we're not going to worry about that too much right now, because this seems like it's the consistency of milk now, and we got a pretty good mix. So I'm really happy with this. So this is how you can turn any of Games Workshop's paints into an airbrush paint, just by using a little bit of water and a little bit of flow improver like you just saw there. So now we're just gonna get in here. We're gonna start blasting our base coat. And just to show you that it works, we're gonna set the airbrush real quick, just do a little bit of back flushing. And there it is. It's going out in nice and easy coverage, no sputtering. So we're gonna hose down all of the parts that need to be this base color and then come on back and show you the next step. Okay, so I noticed something when I was starting to paint here, is you can see it's too watery. So in a lot of cases, what you want to do here now is you just want to hit it with a lot of air, and that's going to dry it out. So it's getting a nice good base coat, which you can see it's kind of catching. It is a little watery. We might have watered it down too much, but I would rather have something be too watery than too thick, because watery is easy to fix on a base coat. Because you can see I'm just blasting it with air right now. So we're going paint, 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 air, 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 just to dry it off. And you can see it's already forming that really dope base coat right there. So we're gonna do probably 2 thin passes here with the airbrush, and then we'll come back and do some highlight colors. So now we got our Dragon Cat all base coated up, all the nooks and crannies all underneath, using that really sweet air, 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 paint, paint, paint. I guess it's backwards. Paint, 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 air, air, air technique. So now we're gonna go in, we've loaded up our brush again with the next color, and this is gonna be Cabalite Green right here. And what this is gonna do is start our highlight process. So we've mixed in already the airbrush flow improver, and as you can tell, it's pretty loose in there. So we're just gonna go ahead and get in here and hit some of the highlights. Now, some of the areas you wanna concentrate on are, of course, the top of the head, you know, places like across here on the knuckles, the tops of the knees, any exposed high area here. So let's see what we got. Hopefully we got a good mix here, and it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna go with it. And we're just hitting all those raised edges. That's pretty much what the next 2 to 3 minutes is gonna be. It's just getting in there, highlighting, and then hitting it with air, spreading out, getting a nice fade, like you can see right there. Very easy to do, short controlled bursts, just like that. We're gonna go through and do that to the whole model and mix in a little bit of air. And now that we're all done with our Cabalite Green, you can see where we went in and hit all of those raised areas, the underbelly, all sorts of stuff, hitting it with the paint, 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 then air, so it dried it out. So we've got all our highlight colors. Now we're gonna come in with something that kind of mimics this Hellion Green right here. And what I did was I took a little bit of Air Terminus Stone and I mixed it in with the Cabalite Green and the paint pot. So we're all ready to go here. So we're just gonna get in here and see how it looks. Blow a little out right here just to make sure. I think we're looking good. It's a nice solid highlight. So again, we're gonna hit the very extreme. So I'm gonna actually aim down just to hit the tips of all this stuff. And that brought it up pretty good without too much pastel or too much ridiculous whiteness in there. And that gives you a little bit of definition. So that's gonna set us up nicely for the next step, which is gonna be a little bit of a glaze to get down into cracks and everything. So we're gonna be very careful where we go. But remember, glazes are gonna accentuate these highlights here. So they're gonna be really, they're gonna bring it down. It's a little bright, but it's gonna bring it down enough to where it's looking fresh. And then we can go in and start hyper highlighting everything. And now that we've got all of those highlights put in there nice and easy doing the paint and air technique, it is time to grab some of our Tester semi-gloss coat to give this thing a nice protective layer to protect that airbrush work we just did, and then we're gonna give it a glaze. Now, let's talk about something real quick. You could go back in with a 50-50 mix of Incubi and the Cabalite if you wanted to and cut some of these highlights back, but because there's enough delineation between the gold plating and the skin, I'm pretty happy with the effect that we got going here. And I think when that glaze hits this, it's just gonna pull it all together. So we're gonna give it some semi-gloss to help break up the glaze itself and take this skin to the next level. Next up is glaze time. So we're gonna grab one of our water bottle palettes and some Corellia green shade here, which is more like almost like a blue purple. And what we're gonna do is just pop some of this out. Brand new bottle. I had to buy the bigger version. Thanks, CW. So we're just gonna pour it. Ooh, too much. Too much. We don't really need a whole lot. Let's see, that's probably too much too. Well, it really depends if we're doing how many we're doing at a time, but this is probably more than enough to do a glaze. So we're gonna grab our 50/50. This is Future Floor Wax, or Pledge with Future, and 50 water. So half and half there. And we're gonna just dump a bunch of this into here. Just kind of doing it by eyeball and then mix it up. And what this should do is give us a translucent glaze to use. It's pretty translucent, but it'll still get down in the cracks of this model here, right? So we're gonna grab our model, and you can see it's shiny because of the semi-gloss, which is going to help this flow even better all over the nooks and crannies. And we'll just start right here, just for effect. We're just going to do right here on the little paw. I'm going to dab a little bit off. You can get a bunch on your brush, but the key is to dab it off. And then we're going to go in here and start glazing. Now it's probably way too much, so we can go in and we can dab it as well. And you can see it's just starting to flow into the cracks. We'll pull it to the back. And then the key here is that we're going to have to let this dry, and we're gonna watch it so it doesn't get all gloppy and crappy all in any one spot. So once we coat the whole model, we're gonna just, keep it on a swivel, keep checking all our angles. If we need to dab something off, we will. So just for instance of, hey, what's too much? What's a glip glop? I don't know what to look for. This would be too much glaze, and you just want to get in there with your wet bristles and just dab it off back to an acceptable level. But you can see I've already started doing this leg here, and it's getting down into the cracks and creating that definition, but also blending the airbrush effect as well, and that's what we wanted. And now that that's all dry, you can see where I got down into the cracks, and our glaze is looking great. Got that definition and brought all that airbrush work together. Now, if you have a little fan, that will definitely help speed up the drying time tenfold at least. This took about less than 5 minutes to completely dry with putting it in front of a little fan. Now we're gonna mix up some of that highlight color and hit some of these hyper squared off highlights on the model here before we jump into the next step. So now we've got that paint mixed up. We're just gonna find all of the fine edges that need to get highlighted. I'm not gonna worry about the little nails and such right there, but places like these areas here on the tail are gonna look great once we get in there and hyper highlight, edge it a little bit just like that, and come back here and hit this side. So that's basically what we're gonna do. Just looking for those really easy to get flat edges to get that hyper highlight on, because if we don't maintain that control through any rounded areas, kind of like what you saw right there, you're not going to be able to get that same effect on the highlighting. So we're just going to go through and knock all that out real quick. And there you can see where we went in and hit all of those really sharp edges to give it that nice stark contrast on all of the skin. You can see up the tail, on the sides there, back down the tail. Any place there was a stark edge to grab, we got it there. So that is pretty much everything you need to know of how to paint lizard skin, dragon skin, using those three basic colors. Now, of course, if you don't own an airbrush, you can just base coat it, then highlight with layers, this Cabalite green, and then work it up with a little Hellion green as well. But we do own an airbrush, so it saves us a lot of time there. Now we're gonna finish up the rest of this model, do a couple of techniques, some more tutorials, probably a how to paint gold tutorial by hand using the Armor Painter paint system there that I really like. Their golds will probably do some basing using some of the GW texture paints, the crackles, so to speak. So that's going to be what's coming up. And then we also have the other half of the rider here, which we're probably just going to paint red, which you'll see a bunch of red up in here. Now, we already have a how to paint red tutorial here on the channel, so we're not probably going to do another one of those on here, but you can check that one out if you're curious about how to paint red. That would be a good refresher. So next up on this model will probably be the how to paint gold, and then we'll probably do a basing tutorial as well. So if you like our tutorial and video features here on the channel, make sure you subscribe to us and turn on notifications so you can be the very first to see and comment on these tutorial videos. If you like a monthly shipment of miniatures delivered to your door, check out our support options over on Patreon. It's patreon.com/spikybits, and head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today.